Page 40, Home on the Range, a very famous melody here in the United States. At the top of the page, they talk about pickup notes or upbeats. Okay, let's talk upbeats. You see, according to the time signature, every measure has to have a certain number of beats in it. Well, what happens when you want to start the song at the beginning, but you don't want to start on beat 1? You want to start on one of the other beats. Well, you could put in rests and then start. This song begins on beat 3, I'll tell you that much. So I could have 2 quarter rests and then the quarter note. That would start it on beat 3. But what they usually do is they use a pickup measure. And that means it's a split measure. You take a measure and you split it. Because overall, they still is supposed to follow the rule that every measure has a certain number of beats in it according to the time signature. This is in 3/4 time. Therefore, every measure should have 3 beats in it throughout the whole thing. Well, if you have 1 beat at the beginning, we need another measure, partial measure, part of a measure, with the other 2 beats in it. They got to be someplace. Not all music actually does that now. It's a bit of a problem, but we get by. We do deal with it. If you look at the bottom of page 41 in the last measure, that has a half note in it. That's 2 beats. That is the first 2 beats of the measure. What they do is they take the last measure of the piece and they chop it, and they take the end of that measure and they stick it at the beginning. So the first 2 beats of the measure are at the bottom, and this is beat 3 at the beginning. Coming in on beat 3, it's a pickup measure. An upbeats. An anacrusis. It depends on how fancy you want to get. Let's not get fancy because this beast looks kind of ugly the way it is. If you look this piece over, you think, good grief, what's going on here? Well, again, this is the main reason that I have a set process I go through to learn a new piece of music. I just do it one thing at a time and focus on one thing at a time, and I actually am able to get it all that stuff stuck in there. So let's just forget what overall it looks like, and let's just focus on these things one thing at a time. So we know how long it is. It's both pages long. It's like, what, 7 lines long? Okay. Treble and bass clef. This is in 3/4 time, so every measure has 3 counts, and it has a pickup beat. That's one of the things I look for. Does it start on beat 1 or some other beat? Okay, it starts on beat 3. It's got quarter notes and half notes and eighth notes throughout and dotted half notes. And we got these curved lines. We don't know if they're slurs or phrases yet. We'll deal with that later. But it's got them, whatever they are. I don't see any accents or anything. I just see that, and then the dynamics, we'll get to those a little later too. So I want to take this one hand at a time and make sure we got the notes, the fingering, the rhythm and all. Right hand first. When it comes in, it's thumb on middle C. Here, you're here. So for the right hand on the first full measure, and when we number the measures, the first full measure is measure 1 because the pickup measure is part of the end. That's part of that measure. So on measure 1, which is the first full measure, that's where the right hand plays. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, rest, rest. 1 and 2 and 2 and. Again, I only do the 1 and 2 and when I get to the eighth notes because I'm too lazy to do it all the time. You want to do it all the time, you go right ahead. And that is pretty much the rhythm for up until you get to measure 17. And that is a dotted half note. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this is tied to hold it down for 5 counts, and then 1 beat rest. 3, 1, rest. 2, 3, tie, 2, rest, rest. 1, 2, rest, rest. 1, 2, and 3, and. You get the idea? Go ahead and work on the right hand for a while till you get it. And then the left hand, we're starting here, and it puts us here. And that's at the beginning is 3, 1, because we're coming on beat 3. 3, 1, rest, rest. 1 and 2 and 3, rest, rest. 2, rest. Measure 5, there's nothing there. Measure 6, you got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, rest, rest, 2 and 3, so forth. You go through and put it in the left hand. The only other thing in the left hand we have to watch for is at the very end, the last measure. It says LH over. That means the left hand comes over the right. There's a right hand here, pretend it is, and plays that note. It's a high C. A C above middle C. You should know the name of that note. If you don't, learn it right there. It's C. And it plays that for 2 counts because it's just a half note now. So then we try putting the hands together. And when you first put the hands together, don't worry about hesitating. Just try and get the hands to work together. You got here and then here. And then these are together. And then 8th notes. And then this. And these are together. And then 8th notes. 1 and 2 and. Hold that down as you do this, and then lift up. So you go through and put the hands together, and then go back through and get rid of the hesitations. It's a steady beat. Nice and slow is fine, but a steady beat. Now, when I first learn a piece of music, I try and connect everything. I just try and connect it with the fingers. That helps to ensure I have a good fingering. I put in all the lifts and phrasing and all that junk later. Right now I'm just connecting everything. But once we have the fingering and the rhythm and all that, then we can add in the articulation, which in this case is the phrasing and slurs. It depends on what they are. Are they phrases or slurs? Well, if it has words, I follow the words. If you have sentences in the words, you probably have sentences in the music. Doesn't have to, but usually do. So if there's a comma or a period or something in the words, that's where I would lift up. Well, in this first line, they've got this, and then lift up, lift up. See, there's that. But if you follow the words, you're going to connect most of the first line together. And then lift up. Because there's a comma there. Then lift up. However, in this arrangement, I'm going to go ahead and pretend all of these lines are phrases. I'm going to lift up between them. And because there's nothing to tell me otherwise, then I'm going to go ahead and connect the notes within the phrase. Then we add the dynamics. Moderately loud at mezzo forte at the beginning, sort of loud. Whatever you think sort of loud is, until you get to measure 17, then you go up to loud. Now, just in case you're keeping up and you want a challenge, I'll challenge you a little more. If you're struggling, you can forget this for now because I'll talk about it later, and I talk about it a lot because it's important. When we do dynamics, the louds and softs, they apply to the melody. It's the melody we're after. It's the melody we want to hear. The melody rules. The melody is what it's all about. Well, in the past, it's all pretty much been melody. But we're starting to get into some other stuff here where not everything is melody anymore. At the beginning, this is all melody. That's melody. This isn't, but don't worry about it. Just but on measure 4, here, the half note, that should be moderately loud, and the left hand here, that should be soft. Can you play moderately loud here and soft here at the same time? That's what we're after. That's the challenge. Can you play one hand louder than the other? You put more weight on one hand than the other, and it could be either hand. So something to look for, or something to work on over time. It takes time, but I'm asking you to maybe, if you can, go ahead and start now. So if you can, bring out the melody is what I'd say. That means play the melody according to the dynamic given, and you play everything else softer than that. How softer? It's up to you, but keep it down. So when we get to measure 14 or measure 17, excuse me, here, that's loud. That's the melody. This other, that should be on the soft side. I want to hear this. This other, that's background. See, in measure 19 and 20, all the time I'm doing this, I want to hear that. That's melody. And then melody. Soft. Melody. That's soft. And at the end, the last two measures. The first note is melody, the rest of it is not. So this is loud, and this other can be soft if you want. I don't like that ending at all. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to hold that down, because that's the note I want to hear. And while I'm holding it down, then I could do. But I want to hear that note. That's how I think it should go. It's a little harder to do that though. And finally, the speed. Think about sitting around a campfire and somebody's strumming a guitar and you're singing. This kind of thing you might do. It's just kind of a leisurely thing to sing at night. You're winding down, finishing the day off, okay? Now, something about pickup beats we need to be aware of. I've spoken about this earlier on, and I need to talk about it more, and that is a thing called natural accents. We feel natural accents. They happen naturally. And it's according to the time signature. The first beat of a measure is the strongest natural accent. In 3/4 time, it's going to be the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It becomes really super duper important when you have pickup beats like this, because if you don't put the natural accent at the first beat of a measure, the listener thinks that first beat you play is the first beat of the measure. They're going to think that's this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It's got to be 1, 1, 3, 1. So make sure that first beat of that first full measure is a little stronger than the pickup beat. To here, to here, to here. You want to feel that 1, 2, 3. It's important. If you have to at first, exaggerate it. Make it an A. But eventually, you just want to feel it. But it's important with pickup beats. I like to play this with you slowly to double check the notes and the rhythms. I'll lift up between the phrases. I'm not going to do any dynamics. I'm going to play both hands about the same. I need you to hear all the notes. We're not performing it. We're just checking notes and rhythms. And because we're coming in on beat 3, I'm only going to give 2 counts. 1, 2 are ready, go, and then we do it. So let's play it together slowly. Ready, go. a duet for this. I'd like to play that, and you play what you just played. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. And again, I need you to go up an octave on the piano. So just pretend middle C goes up here, and instead of here, you're here. Okay? And play it all up there. I'll give us 2 counts because we come in on beat 3. Ready, go.